Imagine a clash so mythic that it feels ripped straight out of ancient legend and modern cinema at the same time. King Kong vs. Medusa. One is the undisputed titan of the Monsterverse, a living symbol of raw strength, instinct, and survival. The other is one of mythology's deadliest weapons, a cursed queen whose gaze alone can end gods, monsters, and heroes alike. This battle isn't just about power. It's about fate, curses, and whether brute force can overcome supernatural doom. King Kong has faced enemies that would shatter armies. He has fought colossal skullcrawlers, battled mechanized titans, and even stood toe-to-toe with Godzilla himself. His world is one of tooth, claw, and dominance, where survival belongs to the strongest. Kong is not just muscle, he is intelligence wrapped in fur and fury. He learns, adapts, and uses his environment like a weapon. Every scar on his body tells a story of endurance. But Medusa does not fight with fists or fire. Her power is quiet, instant, and absolute. One look, and even the mightiest foe can be frozen forever as lifeless stone. Medusa's legend is soaked in tragedy and terror. Once a mortal woman, cursed by the gods, transformed into a monster whose very existence is a death sentence. Snakes replace her hair, each one hissing with venom and ancient malice. Her gaze is not a beam or an attack you can dodge with speed alone. It is a curse bound to vision itself. Heroes throughout history feared her not because she was physically overpowering, but because she represented inevitability. You see her, you die. No second chances. No strength check. Just stone. So what happens when these two worlds collide? When a creature of sheer physical dominance faces a being whose power ignores size, strength, and durability. The battlefield matters. If this fight takes place in a ruined city or ancient stone arena, Kong immediately has the advantage of scale and terrain. Skyscrapers become clubs. Mountains become shields. Kong's sheer size means Medusa is almost microscopic by comparison. One wrong step, one mistimed movement, and she could be crushed beneath his hand without ever landing an attack. But Medusa doesn't need to overpower Kong. She needs him to look. That's the terrifying simplicity of her curse. Kong, however, is not a mindless beast. In the Monsterverse, he has shown emotional intelligence, caution, and awareness. He studies his enemies. He reacts to threats quickly. If Kong senses danger in Medusa's gaze, he may instinctively avoid eye contact. Animals in nature often rely on peripheral vision and body language rather than direct staring, and Kong's survival instincts could save him here. Still, Medusa's power isn't limited to intention alone. The battlefield would be filled with reflections. Glass, water, polished stone. Medusa has been defeated before by reflections, but that was by human heroes with careful planning. Kong is no tactician in the traditional sense, but he is clever in combat. He has used chains, axes, and even his enemies' weapons against them. If Kong notices stone statues littering the battlefield, former victims frozen mid-scream, he may understand that something unnatural is at work. The real question is whether Kong can avoid Medusa's gaze long enough to end the fight. One direct hit from Kong would be catastrophic. The shockwave alone could obliterate her. His speed, despite his size, is terrifying. Kong can leap, climb, and strike with overwhelming force. Medusa, while deadly, is still physically fragile compared to a titan. She relies on positioning, surprise, and fear. But fear is where Medusa thrives. Kong is not immune to intimidation. He reacts emotionally, especially when threatened or confused. Medusa's serpents, her inhuman presence, and the unnatural silence of stone victims could disorient even a titan. If Kong hesitates for even a second and locks eyes with her, the curse may begin. Would it work instantly on a creature of Kong's scale? Mythology suggests yes. The curse does not discriminate. Gods, monsters, and heroes alike fell to Medusa's gaze. However, the Monsterverse plays by different rules. Titans often resist forces that would destroy lesser beings. Radiation, gravity-defying physics, and cosmic energy barely slow them down. There is an argument that Kong's titan biology could partially resist or slow the petrification process. Imagine Kong's skin beginning to crack into stone while his massive willpower and life force fight back. A moment of agony, a race against time. Could Kong break free before the curse fully takes hold? If Kong manages to avert his eyes at the last moment, rage would take over. And when Kong fights in rage, nothing holds back. He would tear the ground apart, collapsing structures, filling the battlefield with dust and debris, obscuring vision. In a cloud of chaos, Medusa's greatest weapon becomes useless. Without clear line of sight, her power fades. Kong thrives in close combat. One slam, one crushing blow, the fight would end instantly. But if Medusa plays smart, using elevation, shadows, and sudden appearances, she could bait Kong into looking. Titans rely heavily on vision to track threats. A surprise reveal could be enough. And unlike Kong's enemies, Medusa doesn't roar or charge. She waits. She lets curiosity and aggression do the work for her. This battle is more than strength versus magic. It's instinct versus curse, adaptation versus inevitability. Kong represents evolution, survival through learning and resilience. Medusa represents punishment, divine cruelty, and finality. The outcome depends on awareness. If Kong understands the threat quickly, Medusa doesn't stand a chance. If he underestimates her, the King of Skull Island could become the greatest statue the world has ever seen. In a cinematic Monsterverse-style showdown, the most likely outcome is a narrow victory for King Kong. Not because he is immune to Medusa's power, but because storytelling favors struggle and adaptation. Kong would suffer. He might partially petrify. He might barely escape the curse. But in the end, his raw power combined with instinct would overwhelm Medusa before she could finish him. The ground would shake. The snakes would fall silent. And Kong would stand victorious, scarred but alive. Still, the idea of Medusa defeating Kong is chilling. A frozen titan, towering over cities is an eternal monument to a forgotten curse. A reminder that not all battles are won with fists. That sometimes, looking is enough to lose everything. King Kong versus Medusa isn't just a fight. It's a question. Can the king survive the stone curse? The answer lies in one moment. One glance. One instinctive decision that separates legend from ruin.